We all have genius in us. We all have a purpose. We all, I believe, come with a purpose and come with something that we can gift the world. So finding out what that gift is for you to share with the world.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Expedition Business, where we talk to inspiring entrepreneurs about the highs and lows of their business journey and how on earth they manage to keep the flame of business adventure burning. My name is Christelle Rosley Venter, your host and the one lucky enough to be talking to Samantha Skyring, founder of Oryx Salt. But before I introduce Samantha to you, I would like to remind you to subscribe, like, comment, and share this podcast with as many friends and family. Without your help, we cannot continue to share the amazing stories of our South African entrepreneurs. But back to Samantha. Samantha Skyring is an entrepreneur at heart. She was working 2 jobs at 13. And at 19, her dad threw her in the deep end to run an aircraft interior refurbishing business with 30 staff. She then went on to start Kayak Africa on Lake Malawi. Her next passion was a 20,000 drums NGO she started, workshopping children in disadvantaged communities across the country. Samantha started Oryx Desert Salt 12 years ago, packing grinders on her dining room table. She's deeply passionate about sharing and making this healthy, essential desert salt available globally, making a difference to people's health and the environment with a reusable, long-lasting grinders. Oryx Desert Salt launched nationally in the USA 2 years ago and has supplied 23 countries to date. Samantha, welcome to Expedition Business.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this invitation to share some of my story with you.
Fantastic. Samantha, I think my number one question that I have for you is why should I bother with something like Oryx Desert Salt if I can get house brand salt at my local supermarket for dead cheap?
Ah, so obviously, most people imagine their salt comes from the ocean, and that's where it has come from for hundreds of years, and still. However, there is this most incredible source of salt in South Africa. We have a gift to share with all South Africans and a gift to share with the world. There's this salt pan, 50 square kilometers, and they discovered underground a 55 million ton salt lake that's renewable and sustainable. So there are 3 underground subterranean streams that replenish this underground lake. And these streams flow through this ancient, untouched rock strata, picking up the salt and the minerals and trace elements. And when it's drawn up onto the salt pan, it's 120% saturated, which is unheard of in the salt industry. And it crystallizes in 4 weeks in a lunar cycle. So I was actually up in the Kalahari a couple of months ago. We were doing a little documentary and getting some amazing footage. And I was so blown away. But I mean, I'm deeply passionate about the salt, but I've become more passionate because being there back in the Kalahari and experiencing the vastness of this remote, uninhabitable space, the salt that comes from under the ground, and in a month it crystallizes under the hot African sun, under the stars, under the moon, and with the desert wind. And that's it. It's this elemental, supercharged and activated salt. And for me, so salt always has a little percentage of water. And water actually holds memory. And so it has the memory of this beautiful place, and it hasn't been touched by humans. So, in fact, in 1972, there was a beautiful gentleman Jacques Delarange, I think is how you pronounce his name, and he brought Celtic sea salt onto the market, and he had the understanding of how essential mineral-rich whole salt is for our bodies, because it's actually a similar proportion of our blood plasma, and we're 70% saline solution, and it's in a similar balance to salty water, that is mineral rich, like the oceans and this beautiful source in the Kalahari. But over the last 60 years, we haven't treated our planet very well, and we haven't treated our oceans well. And
Mm-hmm.
so the oceans are not actually even polluted anymore. They're contaminated.
Wow.
They, the cruise liners dump 1 billion tons of effluent into the oceans annually. And in fact, all of when we take an antibiotic or contraceptives or a prescription drug or hormones or any other drugs, most of it we actually pee out. It ends up in the toilet, in the rivers, and back into the oceans. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a resonance, and there's a homeopathic dose of all of that in the ocean. So I'm a bit of a snob, and I really don't do sea salt. I've always got one of our lovely little mini travel shakers, and always got my salt with me wherever I go. Because salt is so essential for our survival even. In fact, salt is third most important to the body after oxygen and water. So choosing the salt that you put on your food and you put in your cooking, and you have every day, really is vital, to your well-being and your health.
And not as dangerous as everyone says it is.
Absolutely not. So there's a brilliant cardiac researcher in the USA. His name is Dr. James DiNicolantonio. And I love what he says. It kind of encapsulates what happened. Is the wrong white crystal got the bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, sugar is the one to blame for hypertension and blood pressure and all of this. Um, but they put the attention onto salt. I mean, it's a bizarre thing that salt has been so demonized, and people have been indoctrinated that salt is bad for you, because it really isn't. And his book is called The Salt Fix: Eating More Salt Can Save Your Life. And if you think about the old days, our meat was all preserved in salt. Our
Mm-hmm.
vegetables were preserved in salt. We were probably eating a lot more salt than we are now, but it was the right real salt. The problem now is that we're often, eating uh, ready-made meals, and we eating foods that have been produced and made with highly refined, highly processed table salt,
Mm.
which in
Mm.
my mind, like in my next life, I'll take on the government. Should be illegal. It shouldn't be on shelf. And in fact, Morton's in the USA brought out their salt in, I think it was 1910, 1911.
Mm-hmm.
It was the sort of start of the convenience foods. And oh, look how it runs, and look
Yes,
how it
yes.
flows. It's convenient that it doesn't absorb moisture. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what salt is supposed to do. Salt is supposed to absorb moisture and help our body stay hydrated. In fact, drinking water that doesn't have a little pinch of salt in it is almost washing out your kidneys. It's actually not hydrating you. It's really essential to put a pinch of Oryx salt into your water bottle. We've got a beautiful collaboration happening with a product called Revive, Get Revive. It's an
Mm-hmm.
electrolyte powder, and it is powered by Oryx Desert Salt. And
Wow.
I only drink water with Revive in it, with electrolytes. And I love, the product we almost know, it's called Rehydrate.
Mm-hmm.
But I love Mark's view is that we shouldn't be having to rehydrate. We should always be hydrated. So
Mm-hmm.
by using it as an everyday product, you stay hydrated, and you should never have to rehydrate. Which I love that philosophy.
So, if I get you correctly, if I put your Oryx salt into my water when I do trail running or hikes, I will grow
Hmm.
so much faster and longer.
Absolutely. There is research now that if you also, pre-hydration, So you drink before your training, and you take your electrolytes before you start training. And I actually had a really powerful experience of this on my journey. That was part of the inspiration of Oryx.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it was where I had close encounters with the Oryx in the Namib Desert. And my partner and I, for some reason, only had 1 liter container of water. So we used to we did a 7 day walk, 120 kilometers along the Namib Desert, along the Kunene River, but through the Namib Desert as well, because the river was so windy, and
Yes.
the desert dunes flow directly into the river at this angle that was very uncomfortable to walk. So
Uh-huh.
we would pre-hydrate in the morning. We'd drink sort of 10 cups of tea, and then we only had 1 liter that would last both of us the whole day. But because we had
Ish.
pre-hydrated so much, we actually didn't, we never got hydrated and got to a place where we were so thirsty. At lunchtime, we'd drink the balance of our water. By the time we got back down to the Kunene River in the evening, we would want to hydrate again. But the pre-hydration is really powerful. And apparently it can give you an extra 20 minutes and just an extra power in your gym session or your trail run or whatever it is. So yeah, please try it, and I look forward to hearing
Wow.
from you how
I,
how it works.
I will definitely try it. But speaking of your Namib Desert hike that you did in 2000, that played a very, very big role in your business.
It did. I mean, just having an encounter, a close encounter, sort of 3-4 meters away from this incredible beast, this oryx, with up to 1 meter and longer horns, and having this face-to-face encounter. It was actually only 7 years later where I had been offered this opportunity to create a brand for salt, and for, this beautiful salt from the Kalahari Desert. And it was this masked creature, this beautiful mask. When you have a look at the frontal view of an
Mm,
oryx with this
mm.
heart on its forehead and these beautiful horns, that came to mind when I was thinking about creating a logo
Mm,
and a
mm.
brand.
Wow.
And I discovered subsequently that they can go their whole lives without drinking water,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't go weeks or months without licking salt. And
Incredible.
it's a bit of a phenomenon. It is so incredible. And it's a phenomenon because I think they're one of the only creatures that hydrate hypodermically. So their hair absorbs the moisture and the dew at night in the desert. And when they eat succulents and the vegetation, they also filled with water and moisture from the desert dew. And
Wow.
that's how they hydrate, which is amazing. But they need the salt in order to maintain that
Mm-hmm.
hydration, and for the minerals and the trace elements that it offers.
Wow. I think this is a story that we can talk a whole week on. Really, really interesting. But I also like to something that I found really interesting is the story of your grinders and the mechanism behind it. Do you want to quickly take us through the process and how traditional
Mm,
grinders is not so good for us?
thank you. Yeah, again, plastic is this phenomenon, this brilliant product that is so convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And so predominantly the grinders on the shelf are made of polycarbonate or plastic, but it's actually quite soft, and salt is very hard and abrasive. And so with most grinders, when you're grinding your salt over your food, you're actually also grinding plastic into your food. So when you first buy your grinder, your crystals are much smaller, and by the end of your grinder, your crystals are much bigger. And that is because the teeth have been worn away while you've been grinding salt and you've eaten it. And
Mm,
then you go and throw it away, and you go buy another one, and you
mm,
keep throwing, and you keep buying, and you keep throwing, and you keep putting plastic into your food.
mm-hmm.
So our grinder has a ceramic mechanism, so it's a baked ceramic at I don't know what temperature, but it doesn't wear away. In fact, it's the same mechanism that some of the top grinders like Peugeot use,
Yes.
and it's 20 times more refillable. I know a couple people who've had their grinders in their kitchen for 2, 3, 4 years and longer, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't grind any plastic into your food. So one, so plastic is actually an endocrine disruptor. So you really just don't want to be eating it. And you're saving the environment because we're not putting grinders and grinder heads into landfill. And it ends up over. If you were to buy one Oryx grinder and 4 refill boxes versus buying 11 other grinders, you would end up paying 50% of what you would have any other 50%, and less, up to 35% of the cost of buying 11 other grinders off shelf of various brands.
Sure.
So you've got a good quality salt. It actually feels nicer as well. It's got a very smooth grind. Somebody actually once told me that it's much easier for old people to use because, they get a little bit cranky when they're, when we're older, and it's a much easier grind, which is quite amazing. So, yeah, and I think I haven't done the figures for last year, but the year before that, we saved more than 500,000 bottles from landfill or recycling. So together, we're making a difference, which is amazing.
That is absolutely, absolutely amazing. But the whole idea of just grinding plastic into your food, to me, is cringe-worthy. So I will definitely be changing my habits on grinders from now on.
Excellent. And in fact, they did a test on, I think, 50 sea salts from 20 countries around the world, and 90% of them all had microbead plastics in them because of the plastic pollution in the oceans. When you pump up seawater and evaporate it and dry it and make sea salt, whatever's in the ocean and in the seawater ends up in your salt. So there's also microbead plastics in there, which is a bit shocking too. Not but very.
Wow. Samantha, when you started your business many, many years ago, I heard a story that you actually sold your house in order to fund your business.
I did. I can get quite passionate about things, and I was already passionate about the salt. And there had been a very wet summer, and the person that I was buying it from originally was like, "You must have buffer salt, and like global warming, and make sure you've got enough salt." And I was really putting all my time and energy into selling and sharing and putting Oryx Desert Salt onto restaurant tables and into retail shops. And I was like, okay, so I sold my house. And I needed to sell it because I didn't have any capital. So I ended up buying 34 tons of salt, which I stashed into a little storage land garage and lived off the balance. So yeah, very anyways, I went through the 34 tons.
That is, and would you recommend doing the same thing to any other entrepreneur?
Actually not. If I have an opportunity to chat with an entrepreneur, I think initially transitioning is always a good idea. I didn't have the opportunity to transition. I was a new single mom. My son was under 3. And I needed to get my life together, and I needed to put food on the table. So it came out of, in a way, survival. And in retrospect, it was a blessing because had my marriage been happy and safe and financially, my husband was supporting me financially, then I wouldn't have needed to start Oryx. And so it was born out of, hardship in a way. And often life ends up like that there is a silver lining, and there's opportunity that comes out of adversity. But if one is in a job and you've got an incredible idea, because to be in a situation where you're needing to pay your rent and pay school fees and put food on the table, and you've got a great idea, it does take longer than one imagines. I mean, I thought in 5 years I would I would be smiling, which I am smiling, but it's taken 12 years to really get our business to a place where it's now profitable. And, so
Sure.
yes,
12 years.
transitioning is a safe way in a way rather
Mm.
than just leaving everything behind and diving in. And yet at the same time, it, I guess it depends on the person ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got an opportunity to be supported while you're building your brand at the same time, it would be a great way to do it too.
I can't help to think while you were talking about your whole story of selling your house and building your company, we very often hear entrepreneurs saying that they can't build their business or they can't even start a business
Um,
because
mm.
they've got no funding available. But you've made it work and you've made the sacrifice.
So yeah, I mean it's such a tricky one. I remember about 7 years ago, about 5 years in. So I've got two beautiful. Well, I've got four beautiful business partners now, but I had two beautiful business partners that joined me after a year, or 2 years actually, and and they were needing to put more capital into the business, and it was quite a shock to me in that because we were growing and we were becoming successful as a brand, and I was uh, so disappointed to think about the fact that so many brands and successful businesses have closed because of their success. Because as you grow, you do need capital. So it's a tricky one because I mean I had the opportunity obviously to sell my house, which kept me going for more than a year. Um, and funding is a tricky one, but I think, I mean, interestingly, I ended up meeting my one business partner by his wife on a 10-day silent retreat. So
Okay.
I do also, yeah, so we met in silence, we connected in silence, came out of silence, chatted up a storm. Um, Pippa told me about Ian and Garth, two brothers who were setting up a business to invest in small businesses, and she then introduced me, and they then became partners, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. One, their awesome mentorship, this combined strategy and vision for the company and for the brand, and also their investment in capital.
Sure.
So um, yeah, it's a tricky one. It would be there are definitely opportunities, for funding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say that I've been very lucky in finding amazing partners where we all believe together in the brand, and them obviously having the capital to be able to grow the brand.
Even if you have met them in silence.
In a very, very strange way, exactly.
Oh.
I think it's about, yeah, it's I think so important about the intention. If you so believe what you're offering, that your product is offering a service, your product is essential to the world, and you believe it with every fiber of your being, I believe that you will be successful in finding the right way and finding your way, so it's really about being in service with your product, um it being more than just a brand. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
then that life conspires to support you and support your brand, and support what it is that you need in order to continue creating it and offering it. So yeah, I think that,
Oh.
yeah.
I love a comment about it's more than just the brand. That can go so far. But Samantha, throughout the process of building your company, you have been a single mum. Did it have any impact on the average stresses and strains that you have experienced?
In fact, it fueled my business. I think I used Oryx as a little bit of a crutch and a little bit of a diversion and a distraction
Uh huh.
from everything else that was going on in my life. And because I needed to, in fact, I had done a year's teacher training to be a Waldorf teacher, and I visited a little beautiful Waldorf school in Cormackey called Imhoff.
Yes.
And it's a real, it's little wooden cabins, and I mean, I think when was I? I think I was 27 when I visited that school, and I was like, oh, when I have a child, I want to send them to this Waldorf. I had this little fantasy picture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so Kieran was 3, and when I returned from overseas with him, and I'd actually already created product while I was overseas, so I came back and I had this product that just really needed power and attention and energy and and passion behind it, and being out on the road every day selling it. But I wanted Kieran was a an inspiration because I wanted to send him to a Waldorf school, and it drove me to the success of Oryx actually. Um, so yeah, I just somehow managed. I mean, there was a lot going on. It wasn't an easy time, but it gave me something else to do that was positive and I believed in. So I didn't get lost in the drama in a way, So
Mm.
it was a blessing,
Mm.
totally.
And yeah, there's could be lots of excuses through that drama of not making it, but you have made it.
Mm.
Um, but it also sounds like you are pretty much a natural salesperson, and it sounds like that was one of the major successes starting out in the beginning, or did I get it wrong?
Um, I wouldn't have said I was a salesperson when I started Oryx, actually, but I guess we are all salespeople to some degree. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you go for an interview and you've got a career, when you go for that interview, you are selling yourself. So as long as you believe in yourself and you believe in your brand and you believe in your product, it makes the sell very easy. I mean, now it, it's what excites me the most is sharing the story and switching people onto to Oryx Desert Salt.
Mm.
So the sale is just part of communicating really to people around what you're offering. And I've definitely become a brilliant salesperson of my product. Yeah.
Okay.
But I wasn't really one before I started.
Okay, very interesting to know. And definitely inspiration for a lot of entrepreneurs out there to start building their selling skills. But
Mm.
also, Samantha, you've mentioned earlier the time it took to really become, really got to get you going and to become profitable. Um, just quickly, how long did it take you to get into our major retailers?
Um, so my strategy actually was to not go into the retailers initially. One, because I just had zero experience. I knew nothing about brand, product, barcodes, packaging, and so on. And also because so I focused on the independent shops, the farm stores, the delis, and so on, because when people go into those shops, usually they've got a little bit more time. They're looking for, oh, what's new today. They've often got more money to spend, and they're not rushing. They're browsing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you go into a supermarket, usually you've got your list of what you want, and if you need salt, you go to the salt aisle and maybe you're rushing in after work and you'll go to the salt aisle and you'll scan and look for the product that's familiar to you. You're
Mm-hmm.
not scanning to you've got a different mindset. You're looking for what's familiar, you're grabbing it, you're putting it in your basket, and you're going to the next item on your list. So
Mm-hmm.
um uh, Oryx also had the very fortunate opportunity, and it was actually what was also part of the inspiration of starting the company and the product, because I saw a salt and pepper sitting on a restaurant table when I was driving past a restaurant that had an outdoor area, and I was like, wow, amazing! This product can sit on a restaurant table and it can have exposure, one a sale and exposure, and that in a way was the most amazing and still is the most amazing marketing and sort of advertising tool for people to experience the salt and use it and see it. But also the smaller shops are the retailers is a whole nother story.
Mm-hmm.
The merchandising, the if you don't have a good merchandiser, your products end up sitting in a storeroom and not being on shelf, and so then you don't sell, and so then you lose your listing because you're not selling, but the product's not on shelf.
Mm-hmm.
So and all the rebates and the transport. So it's a whole nother level of complexity for the business. So it was only after 3 years that in fact, the first retail was Food Lovers, and we didn't have a merchandiser, and our sales weren't good. So our salt was here, our pepper was there, our refills were somewhere else, and they weren't all together. And so we ended up losing that listing actually,
Sure.
and we relaunched a couple of months ago after probably 8 or 9 years actually of not being in Food Lovers. And then I think we got into Pick and Pay maybe after 3 or 4 years. And Woolworths, I had an interesting mindset around Woolworths. I was like, I'm not going to phone you. You're going to phone me. I was I was kind of I didn't want to go to Woolworths with a needy, like often,
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning with your products, we like, we need you, we want you, and often one doesn't end up in there because you've kind of got the wrong attitude, And I was like, no, you need me more than I want you, and they did end up phoning me. We ended up going in as a gift item initially, and now we've got a beautiful display of our products in about, I think, 86 Woolworth, which is amazing.
Absolutely incredible. And Willie's phoned you. That
And Willie's
is
phoned me.
super, super incredible. Wow.
Yeah,
You
totally.
definitely need to add that to your autobiography one day.
Yeah, there's definitely a book waiting to be written one day. There's lots of stories to share.
I hope you're writing them down as you go along.
I think that's a reminder to do that. But yeah, I think there's enough that will remind me of the journey
Oh,
one day when I've got some
fantastic.
time. Mm.
Samantha, just you sort of touched on it, but just again, what makes you feel on top of the world when it comes to your business?
Um, Having a highly productive day. The sales, like when I'm reaching out to my top clients, and we've just recently launched the most delicious chili salt, um, which is available in a 100-gram grinder plus our gift packs, and it's a beautiful story. It's a collaboration with Backyard Farms,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a project that was born out of COVID, and it's supporting community gardens and girls from Guguletu who are growing the chilies, and they're our supplier and source of chilies, and it's really ended up just being the most beautiful product. Um, and I'd been through a little bit of a difficult period. We'd had some struggle in our admin side with our accountants. Had a new person who didn't work out and ended up leaving quite a mess behind, and uh, and so there was quite a bit of stress for a little while. And then I got to a moment where we've got a beautiful new woman in the office who's just efficient and productive and
Mm-hmm.
fabulous and joyful, and
Uh-huh.
loving having her there and feeling like I can trust that I can let go. She's picking up the reins. And the one afternoon, I just started emailing all my clients around Oryx, and I just had this such a joyful feeling that I do really love the sales. And when I'm in a sales mode and reaching out to people around the world and sharing Oryx, I definitely get a buzz off that.
We can definitely hear that buzz coming through. Absolutely amazing. But in terms of challenges that you have to face on a daily basis, do you just laugh it off or does it get you down from time to time?
um, hmm. So at the moment, I'm walking on the mountain a couple of times a week to kind of give myself um, space to sort of, remove myself. Um, Yeah, I think I've done cold water swimming for many years. I think that's definitely saved me in terms of being able to build my resilience towards stress. There was one particular year, the year that we launched in the USA. Um, Also had somebody working who was supposed to have supported with food safety, and that didn't work out, and she ended up leaving. and food safety was completely like a whole new world to me. And moving warehouse and building a packing room and hiring 10 staff and packing a container with new staff, kind of on my own. I didn't have an ops person at the time. I've got a brilliant warehouse manager. He's was definitely a lifesaver.
Mm-hmm.
But there was such huge learning curve at the time, and in fact, we had three radical crises in that 1 month that we needed to pack this container, and I was on a tight schedule. We had to get this product to the US in time to launch on shelf,
Mm-hmm.
and plus there was, lots of drama in the shipping world as well. So I had sort of put in a month's buffer just in case. Anyway, fortunately that went smoothly, but we ended up getting some grey salt because there had been floods on the salt pans.
Oh, wow.
And we ended up, some of the pepper was moldy, and and the bottles that we'd printed for the barbecue, the logo wasn't correct. And
Oh.
I just managed to, okay, stop the line, um, clean up, let's go into the move, and then just action and just, deal with it. So yeah, there definitely is stress and pressures.
Mm-hmm.
But just, yeah, just managing it. Just I'm not much of a procrastinator,
Mm-hmm.
so just getting on with it immediately and managing the crisis, rather than, kind of burying one's head and thinking that it's going to go away. So meeting it head on,
Mm-hmm.
has definitely made a
But it's definitely not easy doing it. But you've mentioned
difference.
something about the cold water swimming. Where does that fit in?
Mm. I've done it for years, actually. I mean, I was swimming in glacial lakes in Norway,
Oh, wow.
25 years ago. I swam in rivers in Wales, 19 years ago when my nephew was born, in December.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the coldest was a beautiful lake up at about 4,500 meters in the Himalayas, before, yeah, so that was about 17 years ago. And I love the fact that it's become a trend because it really is an incredible tool for building resilience, because you putting yourself, you're shocking your body, and by giving your body that shock when there is an outer shock, somehow you're able to manage it, and have more resilience towards it.
Oh,
So yeah, I love cold water swimming.
and this is not necessarily in a pool. You do this in the sea.
Oh, oh, definitely. I mean, that's one of the blessings of Cape Town, is the fact that we have this most beautiful ocean, and I live in Noordhoek, and it's just the most beautiful corner of the world. And I love the fact that I mean, I'm not there every day, and I have, truthfully, I've only swum a couple of times since I've been back from my trip, just because there was so much going on. I've just been working longer hours actually at the moment. Um, but they're all the beautiful rock pools and tidal pools, and the ocean. You also then, when you're swimming, you're in nature. You're taking time out, so it's beneficial in so many different ways.
Sure. You're making me really, really jealous here. But you've mentioned coming back from a trip. What was that?
Oh, it was a big trip, really. So flew into Miami, drove 4 hours across to Naples where a friend was, and had a few days just to just to ground and arrive and deal with the jet lag. My 15-year-old son came with me, as well as my amazing social media queen, Kerry. Um, and then we drove 4 hours up to Orlando to Dave Asprey's biohacking conference, which is absolutely my most favorite conference ever. It's so there, I think last year and this year had about 150, 160 or more very inspiring conversations, where people, are all actively engaged and there because they're wanting to receive knowledge and learn about what new and what's available in order to sort of upgrade their physiology and their mental clarity. And so it's a very alive, energized space. And then from there, we went straight to the airport at the end of the 3-day show, flew to New York, had a 3-4 hour delay, landed at or arrived at our apartment at 2 o'clock in the morning, slept till 10, got up and went straight onto another 3-day food show.
Oh, wow.
So that was quite crazy, but a beautiful opportunity. I got to meet my buyer from Whole Foods. Um, my son and I spent a few days in New York, in Manhattan, just having the New York experience, and then I flew to London, and had a week there. That was amazing because both my dad and my brother live there, so I had time with family. But there were also a couple of customers that I've been trying to get hold of for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrote them an email with, I am in London. I'm available for these 2 days. Please can we have an in-person meeting?
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I got a meeting after emailing them for a whole year without a response.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a very productive. So my focus now is moving over to the UK and launching in the UK next year, which I'm really excited about.
Super, super exciting. But speaking of countries overseas, it sounds like you've pretty much been in every single country there is on Earth.
Not at all. Don, it's been an amazing part of the journey of the travel that I've done. I mean, I did for many years, went to Cologne and Germany and to Hamburg and to Paris and London and Los Angeles. So I've done some amazing travel. So we've exported to 23 countries to date. Not all of them are constant, but it is available, I'd say now, still in 23 countries. Um, but there's so much more.
Mm, mm,
um, and want to get it, into places where it's more accessible and more available for people to be able to pick up off the shelf and use Oryx salt as opposed to
mm.
what else is available on shelf.
Sure, sure. Samantha, if you could be your 20-year-old self again and you could change anything, what would that be?
Sure. If I could give myself, my 20-year-old self, advice and wisdom, hmm. I guess follow your dreams and your passions. Follow, which I mostly have managed to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I have an idea, even with the 20,000 drums, like, oh, that's an incredible dream and an idea, and I just rush off and I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, doing what makes you excited, what brings you joy. There are a couple of things I would have done differently in Oryx, but there's so many people that I've met along the way that I haven't kept communication um, up with. So I haven't been sending newsletters to all of the people that I met.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I have to say I'm happy. I'm happy with my journey.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have too many regrets actually. It's been a very diverse and a very interesting path that I've taken, and it has always been around just yeah, following an idea and getting passionate about it. Um, yeah, follow your dreams and do what makes you happy and what excites you, with doing the research that it's viable with whatever it
Mm,
is you want
mm,
to do.
mm, mm. Would
Mm.
that also be your advice in general to entrepreneurs? And I think also specifically women that find themselves in the middle of a divorce and have to bring up their own children on their own. What would that be the same
Hmm.
advice that you would give them?
We all have genius in us. We all have a purpose. We all, I believe, come with a purpose and come with something that we can gift the world. So finding out what that gift is for you to share with the world. And maybe it is, having a job and being a brilliant accountant, or some of I've had an interesting time recently. I've just upgraded one of my staff members to packing team leader, and there was another woman who had packed Oryx for many years, but she wasn't leading the team, and she would often not arrive at work, and she didn't have a joyful demeanor about her. And I'm just loving Deslin, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taken on her job, and she's got herself a notebook, and she's got all these ideas, and it's like she can be the best packing team leader for Oryx. And so and she's growing. So if you give everything of your best in what you do, I mean, I have, in fact, my beautiful house fairy, Tina, who I absolutely adore, is here today. And Tina is just the most joyful, beautiful. I love it when she arrives. She's one of my beautiful friends, and she does such an amazing. I feel so, every time she's here, I'm like, oh yes.
Oh.
And she does such an amazing job in my home, taking care of my home. And we put some new shelves up, and she's sorting out all of my all of my stuff in my cupboard today. And so everything that one does, whatever you're good at, just do it really well, and do it with a full heart, and give your absolute best, and upskill yourself. Like, keep doing, keep learning and keep growing.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think that's essential for our souls.
And the learning and growing doesn't have to be the traditional way of going to school, going to university. You can just wing it as you go along.
Absolutely. I mean, this day and age that we live in with the internet, and there are so many incredible people out there who are offering their knowledge for free. You can research any topic. In fact, I would say I built Oryx on that too. I joined the Real Entrepreneur Club or something, and I would get CDs around marketing and finance, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks that keep me inspired and give me skills and tools that I need to keep upgrading myself. And it's been an interesting observation where, as I grow, Oryx grows. And as
Mm-hmm.
Oryx grows, I need to grow. I mean, who I am today compared, and the capacity that I have to hold and manage, and so on, and how much information I have compared to when I started, it's quite mind blowing. So allowing whatever it is that you're doing to be your journey of growth. This is my path to growing myself and discovering more of my potential, and becoming more of me, Samantha, in this role and as a person. To so yeah, and we just so gifted with the internet, and all the people who are sharing. And so I love it. I love listening to new things and being inspired.
Well, while you're talking, it's like it almost feels as if I'm in the middle of an entrepreneurial motivation slash training here, and I can't wait for this interview to be finished so I can go and implement everything that you say. It is so amazing to talk to you, Samantha. But
Oh, sweetheart, thank you.
just quickly, what would be your number one book that you would recommend? Or would it be a CD from the real
It
entrepreneur?
definitely wouldn't be a book. I don't get time to read. At the moment, I'm listening to Brené Brown's Atlas Heart. Unfortunately, I've got a book, Dare to Lead, which isn't on audiobook. I'm going to have to get it onto audiobook. Um, uh, Robin Sharma carried me for a couple of years, getting his 5 a.m. club. I was up at 5 a.m., 20 minutes on the trampoline and doing 20 minutes meditation, and writing, and just being super inspired. In fact, I did it with a couple of friends, and it was like RSS. Robin Sharma says,
Mm-hmm.
and another piece of inspiration.
Oh.
Um, So Dr. Zach Bush was my shining light in COVID. He just gave me hope for humanity, and he speaks about the virome. All these there's 10 to the millions of viruses, that we live with
Mm,
every day, and going to cold water swim in the ocean and in rivers and in lakes is all part about it contributes to upgrading my immunity.
mm.
And he's just got such a big heart for humanity, such a wise human. So I listen to him whenever there's a new podcast. Yeah, so those are my favorites at the moment. Joe Dispenza, his meditation has been amazing. Um, but yeah, each of us find our own mentors and people who give us inspiration. But those are mine at the moment.
Okay. And your metaphorical mountains that you still want to climb within the next 3 to 5 years, what would that be?
In Oryx, um, uh, yeah, so just USA growing exponentially, um, launching nationally in the UK, and opening up a lot of Europe. Australia, we launching in the next month or so, which I'm excited about. We've got a beautiful new distributor for Southeast Asia, so things are actually moving really really quickly at the moment. So that's exciting. But also not only metaphorically, but literally in 2 weeks, I'm climbing a beautiful mountain. I'm doing the um, Great and McGregor hike. So
Yes.
this morning I was up early on the mountain, just pushing up my fitness level, so I'm not the last one in the line, huffing
Uh-huh.
and puffing.
Uh-huh.
But actually to climb mountains as well. I want to do the Wheat Drakensberg hike next year.
Okay.
And that gives me time out and time away from the phone and just time with myself. I love
Mm.
that's actually my dream over the next few years, and yeah, in my life is to just do a lot of walking in beautiful places. So Oryx, making Oryx successful is the inspiration for my own life to be able to do the things that I want to do.
Well, speaking of climbing, would you consider Kilimanjaro or Everest? One of those big ones?
Everest, no, that's too big. I like that. Kilimanjaro, yes, but yeah, for some reason it hasn't been on my radar. But the Drakensberg, I want to spend a lot more time in the Drakensberg. I did a hike there many years ago, and I was completely blown away at the beauty of this mountain range that we have, almost on our doorstep. And
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like, why go to Nepal when you've got the Drakensberg? And of course, there's so many different opportunities now to slack pack where you don't even have to carry everything.
Yes,
You
yes.
arrive and you get served dinner. It's like, I like that. um,
Yes, slack packing
so we
makes
we
it
we ha-
much, much easier.
mm, it does. I mean, there's so many beautiful walks and hikes in South Africa. I mean,
Mm.
we are spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm really excited to do a whole lot more.
Okay. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm doing the otter in a week's time. So,
Oh, how amazing!
yeah, and we've also got friends doing slack packing, and we're all doing food drops because we've heard you get really, really hungry. So things do get
Oh,
much easier.
so okay, you can do a flat pack on the Otter Trail. Really,
Yes,
I
you
wasn't aware
can.
of that.
Yes, you
Oh,
can. Ask me,
amazing.
I've got the contacts.
Okay. Oh, excellent. I will. I enjoy it. It's magnificent.
Oh, but I think maybe we should make an appointment to do a mountain one of these days together.
Please, yes, when you come down, love to walk. And let's walk and chat and
That would
find
be
out more from each other. Yeah, I
absolutely,
haven't heard
absolutely
enough of
awesome.
your journey.
Samantha, thank you so much for your time. It has been so inspirational, so educational. As I said, I can't wait to go and implement everything that you've said here today. Um, yeah, we
It's been
definitely
delightful chatting with you. Thank you.
every entrepreneur needs to hear your story, especially those who feels down in the dumps and need some serious inspiration. I think you haven't
Well,
started doing inspirational talks on a regular basis.
No, I haven't. But if anyone is really struggling out there, my cell phone number is on the Oryx Desert Salt website.
Oh,
You're welcome to reach out to me. I do love sharing and being able to support other entrepreneurs. So I'm available. And please just all of you go out and buy yourself an Oryx Desert Salt grinder, Pick and Pay, Spar, Woolworths, and get yourself hooked. It's really a very supercharged and beautiful salt, and you will feel the difference.